Yeah, you gotta take care of that heckle. Yeah. I didn't know about it. I didn't know about the League of Women.
Yeah, they invited me to a reception, but hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Norman Robinson, your lovely and talented moderator. Welcome to the Downtown Development District's Mayoral Forum, where you will get to hear firsthand the candidates' platform for all of you who live, work, and visit downtown Nouvelle Orleans. Created by the Louisiana legislature back in 1974 as the nation's first assessment-based business improvement district, the Downtown Development District of the City of New Orleans provides enhanced economic development and public space services to downtown New Orleans. It accomplishes its mission through initiatives assisting downtown property and business owners, administering multiple grant programs, employing public safety rangers, deploying clean team sanitation workers, and providing significant funding for outreach to the homeless, additional New Orleans Police Department patrols, and armed private security throughout the district. The DDD services the area bounded by Iberville Street, the Pontchartrain Expressway, Claiborne Avenue, and the Mississippi River. And a note of interest, we do not have Helena Moreno with us tonight. She contacted through her campaign the Downtown Development District and said she had a scheduling conflict. That being said, I'd like to welcome to the podium now the President and CEO of the Downtown Development District, Mr. Seth Knutson.
Thank you, Norman. We are here tonight for one very important reason. Downtown is important. Downtown is important to this city, this region, and this state. We are the largest employment center in the state of Louisiana. Our district includes businesses that generate approximately 33% of the city's total sales tax revenue, and property owners responsible for approximately 15% of the city's real estate property tax value. More than 4,300 permanent residents live downtown. Over $10 billion has been invested by the public and private sectors over the last 20 years. We have a great foundation for success, although significant challenges remain. DDD stands ready to work with our next mayor and council to bring downtown to the next level and make it cleaner, safer, and stronger than ever. All three leading candidates were invited to participate, and unique among mayoral races in my lifetime, each has directly represented downtown New Orleans at various points in their careers. Senator Royce Duplessis as our current state senator, District 5, and former District 93 state representative, Council Vice President Helena Moreno, current at-large and former District 93 state representative, and Councilmember Oliver Thomas as a former at-large and District B council member. I'd like to recognize the DDD Board of Commissioners in attendance tonight. We have Chairman Chris Ross, Treasurer Will Bradshaw, Secretary Ryan King, Commissioner David Piscola, and Commissioner Kenny Rubenstein. And if I missed anyone who came in after I came down here, my apologies. I'd also like to thank John Woodard, Vice President of Sterling Properties, for hosting and providing the venue tonight, and Brandon Falls, Area General Manager for Sodexo, as well as our NOPD detail that's here tonight. Let's have a great exchange of ideas. And thanks to the candidates.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Seth. Y'all need to warm your hands up a little bit. I think you can do a little better than that. Yeah. Now I feel like I'm in New Orleans and not Des Moines. These are the rules that we will be observing tonight. The candidates will get 2 minutes to answer a question. No applauding, no catcalling. We do have security, and let me tell you, I don't mind asking security to usher you out. I'm not bashful about that. The candidates should offer specifics in their responses. And the three leading candidates, as we mentioned earlier, were invited based upon a recent poll with a threshold of 6% and above. Now, I've enjoyed the privilege of mentoring both of these gentlemen, so they know that tonight is not an interrogation. It isn't a discussion. It is an assessment of their specific plan to solve the problems faced by New Orleans. And to begin this debate, gentlemen, I direct your attention to the screen behind you as it relates to the first question that I'm going to ask you. How do you fix the items pictured above? Now, these are examples of long deferred maintenance issues that are at best a nuisance that detract from the city's image and at worst a significant potential liability. How will you change the process and where will the money come from given the scale of the city's current budget? Mr. Duplessis.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank the Downtown Development District for organizing what I believe to be the first mayoral forum. So it's an honor to represent this area. The problems that Norman just pointed out, from lights to road repairs, utility covers, are not unique to downtown. So the process that we're going to have to employ going forward to address these issues will in many ways connect with the process that needs to be employed citywide. We're going to work in collaboration with the Downtown Development District and empower the district and Seth and his leadership to give them as much autonomy as necessary to get these things done quickly. What we have discovered, and I haven't been in City Hall for the past 4 to 8 years, but going into this $100 million budget deficit that we're going to be faced with, and I've heard that the number could be upwards to $140 million, we're obviously going to have to make some decisions regarding prioritization. But there's nothing more important, in my opinion, than getting these projects completed, getting these road projects completed, both in downtown and throughout the city. And our budgets are a reflection of what we prioritize. Our budgets are reflections of our values. And doing it in a more transparent way, I think, is the most effective thing that we can do. And when I say transparent, we have public dashboards, but I don't think they're effective enough. We have to make our public-facing dashboards to be part of a larger performance outcomes-based way of governing. That means that for every image that you see right here on this screen, it's properly tracked from the date in which it is reported by either a constituent or a ranger that reports a problem. We know the date in which it's been tracked, and there should be a time frame for which we can set as a city for when it should be repaired. That creates a level of transparency that I don't think exists right now. You can call 311 and not know when your problem is going to get solved. It's just on the list of everything else. So to promote, oh, that was my 2 minutes? Okay. Well, we're going to promote more transparency to get more accountability, and that'll be up against performance outcomes. That's the new governance system. Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, in a city that works, you don't have that level of neglect. And my campaign theme is a city that works for everyone, because the one thing I discovered the 14 years I was out of office, and many of the candidates in the race have been elected. I got back in office 3.5 years ago. And what I found was that there wasn't the same level of work ethic involved. There were many people who did not understand the system. You had the plumber running the electrical department. You had the electrician running the plumbing department. And everybody wanted to go home at 2:30. Now, the unique opportunity that you guys have here is, guess who was the former capital projects manager for the DDD? I was. Sidewalk improvement, capital projects, NORMC, the Regional Medical Center complex. So there's no guessing with me in terms of the priorities, the projects, and what has to work. The 9.5 years I worked for the engineering firm, my projects were from the Harvey Mitigation Project, Alabama, airport projects in Shreveport, drainage in Mississippi, and several projects here. Guess what I had to have? Benchmarks and performance plans. Instead of the new mayor and civil service meeting about a disciplinary problem, the new mayor is going to first have to sit down with civil service and say, hey, look, let's set up performance plans. Let's set up some benchmarks so that even if a person is civil service, we can get them, if there are 2311 calls about the cone in the hole, how do they get it to 15? When they get it to 15, how do they get it to 10? I think someone who's willing to work with everyone, especially not what you see now. Guys, look, I offered 2 open letters to get the city council and the mayor in the room. I have copies of a retreat that I did when I was council president that the late Edgar Chase was the facilitator for that retreat. But that's not new, it's been done before. Branches of government have to get on the same page. But first I want to thank the senator for coming and showing up. Not everyone has been
Thank you.
showing up for our debates.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, going forward, I'd like to explain that the questions I'm asking tonight were submitted by the DDD panel of administration and constituents, being those who work, live, and visit downtown New Orleans. And I'm going to try to ask as many of your constituent questions as possible, because I think that's where the rubber meets the road.
4 hours worth?
No, I'm going to give you a
okay.
break tonight. We're only going to do an hour.
Okay.
No, we're not going to do a marathon session. Thank you. And this first question will go to you, Mr. Thomas. Canal Street is the centerpiece of New Orleans, but it lacks retail diversity and is checkered with vacancies and or blight. What are your plans to revitalize and modernize one of the most iconic streets in America? And again, we are looking for specifics.
Well, let's get granular then. Let's dig up the old city planning plan that Christina Ford had authored years ago, when some of the elders in public office had talked about how do we reuse the second floors? How do we incentivize? How do we give tax breaks and incentives so that the second floor levels could be back in use? Another thing I'd like to do, since you want us to be specific, because sometimes our specifics may not be the specifics that people think they are. Let's get the Dynasty program back, where they used to work with organizations like the YMCA to deal with truancy, to deal with kids who were congregating and missing school. And then let's make sure we continue the beautification and the lighting program, especially for special events. I think the banner program is a good way to highlight Canal Street, especially if something specific is going on. And I don't know where the sidewalk improvement program is, since I used to manage that program, but let's make sure we don't have cracks in the sidewalk, that we don't have weeds growing through the concretes, and let's make sure those efforts are funded. But also another thing has to happen. Some may remember the DDD Legacy Project several years ago, where the DDD tried to work with the business community and the political community to deal with vagrants along Canal Street. Especially given the problem today, we shouldn't just clean up Canal Street or downtown when it's a Super Bowl or a special event. We have to bring efforts like Dynasty and efforts like the Legacy Project back to make sure that it's not just given the facelift, but people feel comfortable when they come downtown. They'll feel comfortable when they shop downtown. And if they do that, they'll feel comfortable when they stay downtown. You really don't have to reinvent the wheel. Let's just go back to what used to work.
Thank you, Mr. Duplessis.
So I agree with the councilman. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have to get the wheel turning and make it turn better. And I also want to thank him. This is not the first time we've been the only two candidates on the panel together. And the people
duly noted.
Well, I just want the people to know that. But with that said, we need better coordination amongst various departments to get all of these services completed. One of the things that I intend to employ would be that all the major department heads that have anything to do with whether it's sidewalk repair, beautification, light repair, our basic city services, they need to be meeting not once a week, but twice a week around overall coordination as it relates to bringing a better retail to downtown, specifically Canal Street. I think that's a major function of how we deliver those services. If we as a city can show that we're going to properly maintain Canal Street and we deal with the issues around blight and beautification and homelessness, then those retail outlets would be more inclined to invest. And the city can do a better job partnering with DDD to do facade improvement grants. We can set up a better revolving grant or loan program to help incentivize people to do the upgrades that are necessary. Also, we can definitely work with the state and the federal government to incentivize tax credits for the redevelopment of those vacant office spaces above the the ground level. So there are a lot of things that we can do, but I think at the bare minimum, the city has to do its part in the basics. And when we can do the basics, we send the signal to the business community that this is a place you can invest. Canal Street certainly isn't today what it used to be, and downtown will never reach its full glory until we get Canal Street where it should be. We see major retail outlets leave downtown, and that's a problem. And we want to send a message that downtown is a place you can come and walk, be safe, feel comfortable with your family shopping along the strip. That's what we need to get Canal Street back to.
Thank you. Now, this is our first constituent question, and it goes to you, Mr. Duplessis, first. The number of accessible parking spaces in the downtown and French Quarter commercial areas is not even scratching the surface on what is required by the goals set by the city, the ADA. What do you plan to do to fix this for the increasing demands for accessible spaces?
So we're always trying to address the issue of accessibility, but I'm going to work with the New Orleans City Planning Commission, which I used to serve on. I actually served on the New Orleans City Planning Commission and chaired it from 2016, 2017. I enjoyed my time on that commission, but we're going to work with the Downtown Development District to figure out the most creative ways to make it more accessible. We want people using public transportation. We want more people walking. We want more people out exploring and cutting down on the congestion that is downtown to make it more accessible. But working with Public Works and their traffic division to figure out the most cutting edge ways to improve parking accessibility will be my plan.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thomas.
The senator's right when you talk about availability. I think there's some cities, Nashville, Richmond, Memphis, especially some areas with iconic downtowns. One of the things that they did was, and if you're familiar with planning, and he's one of our best planning board members, was that every business that wants to do a business, you have to say how many parking spots, how many off-street parking spots you have. So I think we have to go back to what we used to do is do a survey of who works downtown. What is the capacity of those buildings, right? How many off-street parking spaces do they provide? And once we do a survey who works downtown and what's available spaces, then the city is going to have to work with signage, exploring areas where we can provide off-street parking, as well as access to parking. And that piece isn't really rocket science. That's just working with the planning and the parking division and the mayor and the cabinet that knows who's downtown, who's living downtown, who's working downtown. And when conventions are here, then understand, are there people driving in? All of that data is available if you're willing to do some of the research and the work.
Thank you. I'm impressed by how much you guys seem to agree with each other. My mentoring services are paying off. This is another constituent question, and it goes to Mr. Thomas first. Mm-hmm. How will you balance short-term economic pressures with long-term investments in climate adaptations like stormwater management?
Well, I'm going to address your first part too. I mean, it was a quip, but you don't have to fight or disparage someone to compete with them. I'm a former athlete. And what we see is the political theater downtown with people who wanted to run for office, who started run for office by beating up on people who were in office before they ran for office. That created maybe a pretty good soap opera environment, Norman, but it wasn't a good environment to get stuff done. The Senate and I know how to compete with ideas and how to compete with each other to offer the best for folk in this community. We need to diversify our economy, but the assets are already there. One of the things we need to do is stop fighting with water and Mother Nature and fighting with our natural topography and figure out how to create economic windfalls and opportunities out of it, right? What was that movie, A River Ran Through It? Well, water used to run through many of our communities. We paved them up out of necessity, but I think the new move economically is how do we begin to take advantage of that? Now, I don't want to stretch too far beyond the DDD, but God isn't making any new land, and all the new land is in parts of Gentilly and New Orleans East. You can still have an economic and an intellectual connection if we're working with the titans in business and industry to create, how do we take advantage of ecotourism, one of the fastest growing opportunities in the world? The port is here. We have two of the busiest waterways in North America, the intercoastal and the industrial. Guess what, Norman? They feed the 33-state tributary system. So we got opportunities hiding right in front of us. Stevie Wonder can see them up on the wall, but we keep relying on what's low-hanging fruit and what we already have. Let's get all of the top minds in the room. Let's take advantage of our assets, and let's let the folk in business and industry determine where growth needs to be. I am really tired of hearing respected businessmen and women want to know what the governor and the mayor's economic development plan is. We're smart people, but give us your plan and we'll institute support and policies to support it.
Thank you. Mr. Duplessis.
Yeah, I've never believed that effective leadership is hampered by a lack of ideas. Effective leadership is hampered by politics and the inability to work with others for the purpose of putting the city forward. We have great ideas. We have great plans. We have a lot of smart people. What we lack often is a spirit of collaboration and a willingness to let other people get the credit. That's what we need more than anything right now in the city of New Orleans. So as it relates to the question regarding stormwater management, the city is going to have an honest discussion and make some real decisions to get those who are currently not paying into the system to pay into the system with respect to a stormwater management drainage fee. That's something that we're going to have to do. I'm going to work with the business community to help make the case to the public and to the nonprofit entities and those that currently do not pay into the system. It's just something that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to do it in a way that's fair, that's equitable. We actually going to have another millage renewal coming up in 2027, I believe, to continue to maintain our aging system. But ultimately, these decisions are going to require a new style of leadership, a style of leadership that's currently not being, that's led to a lot of the dysfunction, as I like to say, as I just say, call it what it is. Again, this is not about new ideas, it's about execution of these ideas.
Can we explore that a little further?
Sure.
How are you going to convince a citizenry that is very skeptical of the Sewage and Water Board to go along with a storm drainage fee?
So if you just look at history, back in the early 90s, when one of the millages was not renewed, we were forced to maintain a system with fewer resources. And we now ask the question as to why we have the system that we have. It takes earning the trust of the public. I think we've made some good progress so far. We have to also tell our successes. Everything is not a failure in the city of New Orleans. So we have to reshape the narrative. If we're going to call the city or city hall a dumpster fire, we have to take accountability for the role that we've played in creating that dumpster fire. That's number one. But beyond that, we also have to talk about the successes. Sewage and Water Board has made a lot of progress with the smart meter installments and reducing the number of misreads on bills. We've done a significant amount of investment from the state through capital outlay for the additional power supply for drainage. And we have to make the case to the city that, look, if we don't renew that millage, then we're going to have real challenges. But right now it's about rebuilding trust, and it's hard to rebuild trust when our leaders can't work together. So that's part of the mission. And that's a big part. It's a big part of why I'm running.
Mr. Thomas.
Guess who facilitates those stormwater management meetings with the Water Collaborative? 15% of this community for far too long used to fight against City Hall and fight against the elected officials because 15% was bearing most of the burden. So you would get pushback from the business community. When you look back on the 1990 renewal, it was not a new tax, it was a renewal. It was defeated because Jim Bob Moffitt and many of the folks said, hey, look, we're bearing most of the burden here. So one of the things that City Hall is going to have to figure out in the next mayor is how do you sit down to spread it out so that one part of the community isn't bearing most of the burden. But the significant fact about that, Tyler, is when that renewal was killed, that renewal would have yielded us $155 million to date. Do you know how we could have bonded out or advanced $155 million into drainage projects? Well, the public right now, anyone who goes to the public or a business who's been struggling to get their permit or city services right now is not going to be forgiving City Hall anything. The senator is right. Trust is going to have to be earned. If I'm paying for times a week trash pickup, you at least ought to come get it the one day you're supposed to get it. If a 911 call should not be 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It should be 10 seconds. Anything after that could mean life or death. If you pave my new street, don't come back the next week and dig a hole in the middle of my new street and I got to wait for a whole nother street project. Make it at least 90 days. And he's extremely right about that. If people see that kind of delivery of services and trust, then the titans in business and industry and the folk at the DDD won't mind putting up their money or figuring out a formula so how we share in making sure that we are, because stormwater is real, right? The climate change is real. We got 1,386,000,000 cubic kilometers of water on this planet. It's not infinite. We can only access 0.5% of it. 13,800 kilometers are caught up in icebergs and in the air. So we may have the luxury of thinking that we're surrounded by a lot of water, but we're really not, especially as the climate continues to change. I didn't mean to get too nerdy on y'all.
I can never remember.
That's all
numbers
right.
like
You're forgiven.
And you can fact check me.
that.
This is another question from a constituent, and it focuses on civil service. And it goes to you first, Mr. Duplessis. The constituent says, there is currently a culture of not my job, failure to reply, lack of urgency and or caring across many city departments. There seems to be a lack of understanding that civil service means service. What are you going to do about that?
So civil service obviously was created to protect employees from any sorts of political retribution. You have elections, you didn't support my candidate, you don't do what I say politically. So civil service has a purpose and there is a need for it. There have been attempts, many attempts over the years to, in some cases, get rid of or reform civil service that have not been successful. So I believe in protecting civil service, but I do believe we need to update and make the necessary changes to ensure that department heads and leaders at City Hall can employ who they need to employ. They can empower who they need to empower to get the results that are necessary. So as I'm having conversations with leaders in business, also leaders within the city who understand how operations should work, I do believe there's a real conversation and real action that needs to be taken around how we can modernize our civil service system so that employees are still protected from any type of political retribution so that they can show up and do their jobs and do the right thing Sometimes doing the right thing isn't the political thing oftentimes. And we have to ensure that there's that balance, but we also cannot have an outdated system where you have employees. And I want to say this, I said this last night at a forum. I'm grateful for the people who show up every day and work and serve our city. I'm not here to disparage them or generalize as though everyone who is part of civil service is part of the dysfunction. I'm not going to participate in that. We have to value our employees. We have to ask ourselves as leaders, are we doing what we're supposed to do to make sure that they're being properly paid, properly compensated, and treated with respect? So it goes both ways. But we also want to make sure that our civil service system is up to date in today's world of 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Every administrator, all executive branches want to get rid of any other authority in terms of hiring and what they can do when they run a country, a state, or a city. The fact that civil service is there is that you need to deal with them on the front end. That's why I said earlier, sit down with the director of civil service board to talk about how we can do benchmarks and performance plans, not just meet up when there's a disciplinary action. There are best practices for cities all over this country. Some will remember Jeff Smith or Goldstein, who was the Indianapolis mayor who won a claim and fame because how he figured out how to make city services work better, Dr. Termini. He went in with this conservative idea that everything should be privatized until he saw and found that there were city workers, once they were trained, once they were appreciated, and once he had a cabinet of officials that to motivate them, they actually outperform many of the privatization contracts. And so he was able to save money to go back. A leader isn't comfortable with people sitting down doing what they want to do or what they can. My father had a simple quick quip that he would tell us as we got older. He says, if you leave your house in the morning and you tell your family you're going to work, don't lie to them. Work. So we're in a city right now, and that's why I kind of blame myself for going away on vacation. When I came back, I found a lot of systems broke. Tyler, you remember us being in City Hall till 10, 11 o'clock at night working on. People took pride in doing what they were doing. I don't buy the fact that we don't have enough people. Because if you had 1 million people who were doing 50% output, what you going to do then? You're going to go and get 2 million? Let's find out at what level of service and what level of output the employees we have right now, and then let's build from there.
Thank you. I need to push back a little bit on that one. There are departments that don't have enough people. Specifically, traffic signal department with 3 people in a department that should have at least 20 to 30 people. What do you do about solving that problem?
I mean, but that's impact budgeting. That's prioritization. That's the mayor, whoever the mayor is, sitting down, understand. So what is the cost benefit for that, right? How does that impact the community to have those signals out? And putting together a plan to do it. Norman, you're going to have several departments that say they don't have enough people. I don't even know if some of those departments need to exist. And how can I say that? And I'm qualified to say it. In 2005, the city had 503,000 people and a $500 million budget. Now the city has 350,000 people and a $1.8 billion budget. So for me, in my little mind, before we start talking about what we don't have and how much we need, why do we have so much more and deliver so less? I may be different from everybody else, but I'm gonna start there.
Well, isn't it a fact that you've got traffic signals out all over the city and you've got stop signs where there should be traffic lights?
Of course you do.
Well, there you go.
But the people who work in that department drive by that. So if I drove
There's
by
only
that,
3 of them, Oliver. There's only 3 of them for the entire city.
what's the output for the 3?
What's the output for the 3?
What's the level of efficiency for the 3? And I'm not saying that we
so
don't need more than
You
3.
think that 3 people can repair all
Not
the
at all.
lights?
Not at all. Not
Well,
at
then
all.
what are we having this disagreement for?
Not at all. But what I am saying is, if we keep looking at more money, not understanding what efficiency is, guess what? The budget's going to be bigger than 1.8. That's simple business. The budget's going to be bigger than 1.8 billion, and you're still going to get a third of the service.
Mr. Duplessis.
So I believe the priority should always be about providing the service. And while I will make every effort to staff up the departments that are understaffed, the priority is service delivery.
Absolutely.
So the question around why the department is of the size that it is, it's not. It sounds bad, and it is bad that we only have 3 in that department, but it's not because we haven't been contracting with outside vendors who provide those services, and that's been a cost-saving measure. So while the street light, there's 2. I was one at Camp and Melpomene today has been out forever, four-way traffic light, but the larger issue to me is what is in the way of those who we contract with to be able to go and get the service done. That's the priority. It's not necessarily around saying we have 20 people in a department, although that would be more ideal. My understanding is that historically, why we've seen the numbers shrink is that you save costs when you contract it out, but we clearly have issues even with our vendors.
All right,
Yes,
we'll move on, but we could spend the rest of the debate hour
Or
on
we
that.
could.
Yeah.
We'll move on.
We should.
Now, this is another question from a constituent whom I had a discussion with in the lobby about the Department of Safety and Permits. This constituent opines that safety and permits is the economic engine that drives development in the city of New Orleans. And some business leaders have complained that they had to move elsewhere because of the slow pace of safety and permits. What's your plan to shore up that department? And that question goes first to Mr. Thomas.
The first thing you want to have one of the most efficient, proficient, most qualified people. What happens in safety and permits is similar to what happens with energy. Where people are turning on lights and adding service, the city is growing. If business people are applying for permits and occupational license, the city is doing business. But what needs to happen is how they do business. The engineering firm that I worked for 9 years, Lord. We had to rely on civil service. We had to rely on City Hall. In many cases, you could have permits stuck in departments for months at a time. My niece and nephew are two young entrepreneurs. They own two businesses. It took 9 months for them to get their permit with my help. Now, I have proposed, and I like to give people credit. Councilmember Mayoral has joined me in that. There are other cities that issue provisional permits. If someone is a business that's in good standing, right? They've applied for permits before, they've done business before. If they've checked every permitting box but two, why can't they get a provisional permit to start doing business? And especially after they've gotten all their state licenses while they're waiting on the city for that other check, period. When you heard me mention performance plans and benchmarks, Dino Bonanno is a good friend of mine. We did a lot of hunting and fishing together for 30 years. He had a friend who had a permit stuck on the 7th floor in safety and permits. I didn't email, I walked up there. That permit was stuck in a pile of 29 permits. They sent him his check back. So I told the lady, I said, you do understand the more checks we cash, that's how you get paid, right? You shouldn't have sent it back, you should have kept it, right? And send it to finance. She said, well, I wasn't ready to process this particular license yet. What about the other 29? I said, I'm not asking you about the other 29. I'm asking you about this one. This gentleman pays about $1 million or so in taxes. Look, if the leader takes pride and the director takes pride, then the people who work also have pride.
Thank you, Mr. Duplessis.
So businesses, in order to thrive, in order to decide what cities they're going to do business in, they need predictability. Without predictability, on a level of certainty on how long it will take to get a permit, how much it's going to cost, you can't expect businesses to stick around your city. So two methods that I intend to employ as it relates to safety and permits will be, number one, how can we restructure safety and permit to make it more efficient? We have 7 divisions in safety and permit. We have everything from electrical to mechanical to zoning. Within the zoning division, you have 6 subdivisions. What that tells me is that there are a lot of silos within the department. We have to move beyond these silos, break down some of these walls, cross-train employees so that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. I first met Councilmember Thomas 20 years ago when I was a chief of staff to a New Orleans city councilman in 2006. That's when I learned City Hall. That's when I had to navigate City Hall, helping constituents get things through. And we have to modernize it and get past the way of doing things that just because that's how we did them. We have to look at how we can improve efficiencies. And it takes leading with a level of urgency, as we have to do with all businesses and organizations that we manage. But the other thing we have to embrace is technology. The city of San Jose, California is embracing artificial intelligence in their permitting department. Now, when you use artificial intelligence just as a term, it might bring some concerns, but we have to embrace the future. That's where we're headed no matter what. So to stay competitive, we can't be afraid to embrace the most cutting edge technology on how we can make safety and permits a more efficient process. Why should you even have to come in City Hall to get a permit? If you have all your documents from your home, we should be operating from a standpoint you can do everything from your home. I think that's how we have to get to a place of operating City Hall from the mindset of 2035 and not 1995. So moving beyond paper, making things digital, but ultimately consolidating and cross-training our employees.
Thank you. This question is from the Downtown Development District. Its core mission is to offer supplemental or enhanced services to the downtown taxpayers. Throughout the years, the Downtown Development District has been asked to provide or otherwise backfill for diminished baseline services. Would you be willing to enter into a baseline services agreement with the Downtown Development District to establish city responsibilities and expectations? That question goes first to Mr. Duplessis.
I know that this matter has been in litigation, I don't know if it's still in litigation, but I will always work with the Downtown Development District to ensure that we have a fair deal. If the Downtown Development District's being asked to do any sort of backfill on services, it just needs to be fair. And that's the key. I know that historically there have been some challenges there. I'm going to work with the leadership at the Downtown Development District to never ask them to do more than what they are more than what they should be doing, or pay for more than what they've been allocated.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Look, this is an age-old discussion and topic, and I don't think you reward the city for not being efficient, especially with charter-related services. Because if there wasn't a DDD, the city would have to provide those functions anyway. So there needs to be a partnership and a relationship, especially with our most viable partner in downtown, so that the resources you guys garner and collect can go to promote what y'all want to do in terms of business advancement, right? Maybe more sidewalk improvement projects like the firm I worked for worked on, the Convention Street traffic and sidewalk project there. If you don't have money, then you can't continue to be creative. And when you talk about AI, the city's been AI, always inept. Always inept. So we want to get rid of that kind of technology and have the relationships where everybody's working together. So as a former DDD employee, I think good stewards can sit at the table and say, hey, look, how do you help us in times of need? And I think both the Senator and I agree with that.
Thank you. This next question comes from a constituent, and it goes to Mr. Thomas first. And that says, neglected buildings present significant safety concerns, and the collapse of several buildings has highlighted that issue recently. What are ways that the city can help to ensure that people maintain their buildings or get them into the hands of a responsible owner before they become blighted and dangerous?
Neglected and blighted buildings are also opportunity. If we had the ability to seize property, now look, this is a little granular here, but when you talk about the ability to control and raise revenue within the city and having that control, as well as the rights of property owners, we govern by the state with European civil law and British common law, which means that in either of those areas, it has to be in line with the state constitution. So we're going to need great senators like the senator in Baton Rouge working with us to give us some freedom. They are, you know, he's a fabulous senator. He's one of the best I ever known. They are cities in other parts of the country, more progressive, that if you had a piece of neglected property, they could seize that property. Our redemption period was cut from 3 years to 18 months in certain categories. Look how long folks been complaining about the Willows and other places. Were they able to do something? No, because we really don't have that particular freedom. But the one thing I like to do is not hire the engineering firm I used to work for, but let's go do a survey, a study of the buildings in terms of their viability, right? Are they safe? We ought to be doing every property that's blighted or in neglect. The city shouldn't just have an inventory of them with NORA and with blighted property. We should know its level of stability and the condition that it's in, and if that it poses any imminent danger. That's an easy one.
Mr. Duplessis.
So if I'm elected within my first 100 days, this city will see a market difference in terms of blighted properties, not just in downtown, but throughout the city of New Orleans. Code enforcement, blight reduction is something that is squarely within the purview of the mayor. With respect to property rights, people will have their opportunities to do what they need to do under the law. I have supported every measure recently in the Louisiana legislature where we have come with more aggressive penalties, not just increasing civil penalties, but even criminal penalties for certain blighted structures for property owners who just don't want to do the right thing. And it's not just an issue of beautification, it's really an issue of public safety. So we have to treat it in such a way that people cannot allow blighted properties to ruin our city, to ruin other people's property. We have to be aggressive about that. And the city deserves to see a mayor that's going to lead with tenacity to send the message to certain property owners that, look, if you don't get your act together, we're coming after you. And I'm going to give certain property owners, even from downtown all the way to New Orleans East, the opportunity. I'm not going to give them the opportunity. I'm going to bring them into the office and say, look, whether your building's in litigation, whatever it is, the city has to put pressure on these blighted property owners to either you're going to sell them, get rid of them, or do something, because we're not going to continue to let these blighted properties ruin our city.
Thank you. This next question also comes from a constituent, and it goes to Mr. Duplessis first. As a resident of the CBD, the constituent says, I'm deeply concerned about the ongoing sanitation issues in our city. Downtown consistently deals with trash, litter, animal, and human waste on the streets. It is both a public health and an image concern. What specific actionable plans will you implement to improve sanitation, ensure accountability in baseline city services, and restore pride in the cleanliness of our neighborhood?
So that's building off of the last question and my last answer. When we talk about blight reduction, cleanliness, sanitation is right there as part of that same conversation. Since I've been in the legislature, I'm proud of the resources that I've been able to direct to the Downtown Development District to assist with beautification and just overall improvements. As it relates to sanitation, if there's a contract in place and the contract is not performing, then we need a new contractor. I mean, you bid a contract to someone to pick up the trash, and if they're not picking up the trash, then I think we need to find someone else to pick up the trash. It was unfortunate, in my opinion, that we saw the fight play out like we did recently in the city of New Orleans, that it got to that level. But ultimately, I just want the trash picked up. So if the trash isn't being picked up, then that seems to me that you're not fulfilling your obligations under the contract to keep downtown clean. So, I mean, it's not easy, but it's simple. So,
Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a 180 on this piece because I've really paid attention and to a lot of this stuff. And one of the things I want to do is I want to thank the DDD and their leadership. So I'm not familiar with this isolated situation of this individual, but I think the DDD with their clean downtown program is in line for awards, and you guys are being noticed all over the country from Super Bowl to now. So I don't know what the isolated situation is with this, as well as with Canal Street. I'm seeing more people shopping on Canal Street now. So we may be highlighting some questions, Norman, that are problems from people, but I got to give y'all some credit as someone who worked with the DDD. Y'all are doing more with what you have in terms of the presentation from the convention center all the way to the old Normsey boundaries. I think it's probably at the best that I've seen. And when I drive down Poydras and the streets around City Hall, I don't see the level of trash or litter strewn throughout the streets anymore. Now, if it's an isolated situation, then I think you deal with that. If it's a building or a business, you deal with it. But I'm kind of proud of what you guys doing because I've seen it when it didn't happen.
Thank you. This next question is from the Downtown Development District, and it goes to Mr. Thomas first. Although the downtown area is near an all-time low in crime activity, the perception of crime remains high. What are your plans to address public safety and make people feel safe in downtown New Orleans?
I think some of that is being addressed if you look at the statistics and with the DDD, their staff is doing their relationship with the 8th District and police and law enforcement partners downtown. But there's some other things that I think can help. And I was thinking about it earlier, especially looking at some of you guys' plans and reading those old plans. One of the things you could help with is lighting, walkability, and signage. If you look at downtown areas around the city, they light it, right? They create walking lanes from one place to the next. And there is signage that supports, that's highlighted, that supports activity, that supports economics, that supports opportunity there. I think that'll do a lot in terms of the perception of crime. The perception of crime in New Orleans is always more than it is. And it's bad, and it can be bad. But I think at some point, we need to take a look at the DDD is how we create our own separate city, not just downtown development district, to take advantage of the people who want to cross canal from the quarter, to take advantage of the people who want to come from the Moonwalk to cross Convention Center Boulevard, and to take advantage of the people who on either side of Poydras in the way it's lit, in the way it's walkable, in the way signage represents it.
Thank you. Mr. Duplessis.
So I think tone setting has a lot to do with how we deal with not only the issue of crime, but as OT said, the perception of crime. We have to set a tone downtown. We have to set a tone downtown, as well as how that pedestrian traffic connects to the French Quarter, particularly streets like Bourbon. And there's a lot to unpack there, especially when you talk about people, illegal vendors, people who show up and just kind of do what they want to do downtown, and how we have to aggressively address that. But I think the lighting and how people experience walking downtown on Canal Street, it's always been of concern to me, especially as of late. And I've expressed this to the leadership of the Downtown Development District. If you're driving up, let's say, Decatur or North Peters and approaching Canal Street, you have tourists, you have people who are in town, you have some locals, but there is no real coordination around when people should and shouldn't cross the street. There's just a level of kind of just carelessness of sorts. I think little things like that play a big role into the overall tone of downtown and how people view it, how people look at it. And we as city leaders, and again, I think lighting, signage, saying, look, you don't cross the street until the hand says you can cross the street. Now, that may sound a little bit of broken windows theory, and I'm not specifically pushing for that, but I do think that we have to be more intentional around how we manage the flow of pedestrians along Canal Street. I really think it makes a difference, because we have to tone set down there and send a message that certain things are just not going to be tolerated. And I believe that that's a big part of what will ultimately connect to crime downtown.
Thank you. Now, this is my last question, and then we will move on to closing statements. This goes to Mr. Duplessis first, and it's from the Downtown Development District. The development of Charity Hospital and the growth of the Bio District into a Biosciences Innovation District present a generational opportunity to breathe new life into a long neglected part of downtown New Orleans. As mayor, what is your vision for leveraging those efforts to catalyze economic development? And how would you ensure that the benefits of this revitalization reach residents across the entire city?
Such a great question to end on, because it's such an important part of downtown. Not only how we save downtown, but how we move downtown to the next level. I was proud 2 years ago to author the legislation working in partnership with the Bio District and the residents of Mid-City to redefine the boundaries of the Bio District, so that we can now move forward with getting the necessary funding to finally bring the Bio District into what it was always intended to be when the Bio District was created back in 2005. We've seen nothing happen. So now we finally have an opportunity to see the transformative change that we've been waiting on. I'm thankful to Tulane University for stepping up. The redevelopment has taken entirely too long, but I will be a champion like no one has seen to ensure that Charity Hospital becomes what it should be, which is the link. It is the true link to taking downtown to the next level. And again, when you talk about connecting it with residents, too often we see economic prosperity, we see economic investment, and we see economic gains, but it never makes its way to the people. We're talking about redeveloping Charity Hospital so that people can get better paying jobs in healthcare, biotech, bioengineering. We have a lot of opportunity for the residents and the people of New Orleans to be able to benefit from a historic investment in Charity Hospital. And if we work collaboratively, put our differences aside, and think for the next 50 years, this can be the project that really turns it around for New Orleans.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
Oh, man, I have thought about this a lot, especially since I was one of the facilitators for the historic charity project for the three developers several years ago.
Yeah, I spoke at that.
They called and they asked me to facilitate the discussions about the history of charity and why it's viable. One of the first things I would do is, what is New Orleans known for? Some of the most notable people in this city, Senator, were born at charity, right? So let's create a historic district. So what does that do? Now you're talking about a mega $1 million project. In the early plans, when you talk about a walkable community, how it builds off the old NORMC, New Orleans Regional Medical Center project, the biomedical thing, how do you incentivize it so folk can take advantage of that? But also, what does the mixed use look like? It is the perfect place if you can get some historic status, tax credits, maybe some pilot programs, maybe some TIFs to get the state and federal government to buy into. We could sell, man, a whole story and a whole documentary around the history of charity and grow out from that, right? Because it'll do a couple of things. It'll talk about its presence and what it means to the city. And it will also attract investors and people who want to understand what that particular building and what it meant to New Orleans in general. And if you haven't seen the initial plans, I really like it in terms of using that building as the stability there, but also building a walkable community from Poydras down to Canal Street. But that's going to be heavy lift, Norman. You're going to need federal money, state money, and private investors.
Thank you. And now we move to closing statements. Mr. Thomas.
Oliver Thomas, number 26. It's really not a campaign for me. It's a movement. When you talk about the city, one of Norman's questions earlier was why simple things don't work. When I came back to government, I saw a city where some people thought they could do what they want, when they want, how they want, to whoever they want, wherever they want, and whenever they want. That has to change.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have rules and laws to govern our city. I am not sure. We have to be careful. The next mayor has to be careful that you don't keep adding or saying we're going to add to this budget. The budget's already grown and delivering less services. So some departments may need to grow, but I'm not going to reward departments that haven't delivered the services of what they have. We're going to find out how we can create more efficient departments and what they need after they start delivering. So I'm an under promise and I'm an over deliver, because I don't understand how the budget can be 10 times bigger than it was with 150,000 fewer people, and you can't pick up the trash on time. If institutional knowledge matters, if relationships matters, if vision matters, and when I talk about reversing the social order, for too often it's been politics, business, and people are last. Places where I live, where it worked, it was people, business, and politics as a supporting entity. I want to be the kind of mayor where you don't care who the mayor is and who the council is, because stuff works. We've all lived places where we didn't really know who was elected, but we know things happened on time. That's the kind of environment that I want to create. And when you talk about people say, hey, will I have a seat at the table? No. The New Orleans, everybody's going to build a new table. And if you build a new table, you don't have to ask politicians for a seat at the table. Why? Because it's your table. Guys, please join me in this movement. I got back into this because I understood how serious it was. I was out of office for 14 years. Many have been elected while I was gone. So it's time, and maybe sometime, the best person to teach a city that's been knocked down is someone who was knocked down, but learned how to get up.
Thank you, Mr. Duplessis. You will get an opportunity to applaud after the closing statements are done.
Thank you, Norman, and thank you to the Downtown Development District for organizing this discussion. And thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for caring. Thank you for believing in New Orleans. My name is Royce Duplessis, and it's an honor to serve this community. It's an honor to serve this city. For the past 7 years, I've represented downtown. I get to represent the district when people say, what district you represent? It's probably the district you visit and stay in when you come to New Orleans. 4 years in the House, 3 years in the Senate. But my service to the city started 20 years ago as chief of staff to New Orleans Councilmember James Carter. That's when I learned City Hall. That's when I learned about servant leadership. That's when I learned that public service is not about notoriety. It's not about seeing yourself on television. It's about making things better. It's about making things work. It's about putting your differences aside, putting your ego aside, and putting people first. And I'm running for mayor because I want to make New Orleans an easier place to live. I want to make it a more affordable place to live. I want New Orleans to be a place where we are proud of, and you're proud of the leadership that's coming out of City Hall. I cannot sit on the sideline as I saw the dysfunction, the chaos, the your win is my loss type of politics that has been governing us for too long. It won't get us where we need to be. In fact, I believe it's the largest contributing reason as to why 20,000 people have left the city, why we're facing a $100 million budget deficit, and why there's a serious lack of accountability, finger pointing, calling City Hall a dumpster fire when you've been at the center of creating that dumpster fire. We need real leadership right now. I have the vision, I have the experience, I have the temperament, I have the heart to go into City Hall and to work with people who I disagree with to get things done for this city. I do it every day in the state legislature. I'm in the super minority, but I still work with people who I disagree with to serve this city. And I'm willing to go to bat for this city because I believe in it that much. My 7-year-old daughter is counting on me. Our children, our grandchildren, they're counting on us to make this city all that it can be. And downtown is the heartbeat. I'm honored to serve you. I hope that I can earn your support. Thank you.
How about a big hand of applause for our candidates? We want to thank them both for their frankness, for their honesty, and their courage to show up and answer questions from the constituents and from the DDD. And I've enjoyed being
Thank you
your
all very much.
lovely and talented moderator.
Thank you.
Good night.